Hi, Ken. Welcome to Winter with Grace today.
Hi, Grace. So wonderful seeing you. Thank you for having me.
You are probably one of the most like I would consider you're one of the most put together CEO I've ever met. Every time I met you, I feel like you are always so like in the best. You're like number one best dressed, and then number two, you always have the best manner. Like I just have to put it out there.
Grace,
Yeah.
people clearly know that you're just being way too generous. I have the same
No,
T-shirt on every single time.
no,
It's
no, no,
called
no.
the basic floor of tech fashion.
No, not really. Like I feel like so most times like I feel like you're always in like a suit or something, like a blazer. So you're always very together compared to every other San Francisco person. By the way, I wore my Republic shirt today, but it's just for
Yes.
this.
Thank you
I'm
for representing.
I love this shirt. You should like sell merch. But
I'm a huge fan of you as an entrepreneur, and truly grateful to be on this segment and have the conversation with you and your audience.
thank you so much. You're the first return guest on my new show. Anyway. You're the first on my mind anyway. So okay, so let's talk about so like previously we talked about your journey into entrepreneurship and we chat about like how um Republic was started and right now you guys launch a lot more new products since we chat. And I think like there's like three big bracket of things I wanted to like, talk about or learn from you. One is I feel like number one is like I feel like you hire great talents like by meeting people in your gatherings. I feel like either you have worked with them before or like they're currently on your team. Everybody is like top tier. I wonder how in terms of talents, how did you kind of like find the best talent to join Republic?
It's a great question, and I don't think that there's such a thing as a one size fit all when it comes to recruiting and talent retention. But it is very helpful that as a business, we have a mission that resonates with people, and it's rare. And we're
Mhm,
clearly a financial firm, a
mhm,
financial infrastructure firm, and an investment platform. But there's a true do good component underpinning all of it, meaning as we grow and the industry continues to grow, we really are driving forth a new societal trend, right? Which is enabling people's relationship with money to expand and to capture and connect with what they care about. So if as we
mhm,
grow and hopefully succeed, it is about people empowerment and putting that choice back into the general public. So I think because of that, that we probably have an easier time both attracting and retaining talent that have options, that have
mhm,
choices to where they want to spend and work. So that's one. And the second one, I think that as a founder, as an entrepreneur, and as a CEO, the one of the key responsibilities is obviously recruiting and hiring, particularly at the leadership level, but all throughout. And the people in your network. And I had a prior career, a couple prior
mhm,
careers before tech. So my professional network and social network probably is deeper than, let's say, someone who just recently graduated from college and launched a firm. And so I've been very lucky to be able to get to share and convince many of my friends from prior life to come and build together.
I wonder, okay, so in terms of like building Republic, since you started to now, it's been going through many different like journeys. And I wonder like how do you like I guess like can you separate them into let's say three different time period? Let's say like when you were first starting with co-founders and how do you kind of like get the first version of the product out and then like what were the challenges that you were facing? And then number two is like I guess like when like there's like the chicken and egg problem, right? Like so there is the buyer side of Republic like which is like the regular human, but I feel like to attract the best um attract buyer, you have to have the really good supply of deals. I wonder, how do you get the best deals onto the platform at the beginning? Now, since like you guys have built this out for a while, and then there's a lot of like, Gumroad was like raised on here. There were like different funds, like venture funds were raised on Republic. Before those inflection points, or like before these like really major, launches, I wonder, how did you get to the point that like, the really good companies wants to be on Republic?
So there's two. You mentioned three. Is there a third phase
Yeah,
you want?
there's a third. I feel like the third question is like about like there's a rate like rising trend that, like prior to this, like, the founder of Allocate was on the show. So like there was a lot of like people are connecting the LP side to GP side. That's like a trend I've seen in venture capital as whole. And I wonder, what's your thought on the LP trend? Because from like a media perspective, I feel like I've chatted with um like there's like some LPs on our show now, and then I've seen a lot of my friends started LP podcasts, and or like started like creating content for GP, to like basically the open LP movement, right? Like people understanding how the family offices work, how like, these different endowment works. So people just started getting there. I wonder if there's a play for Republic to do something like that in the future.
These are three obviously complex questions, so I'm gonna try to answer them rapidly so that I don't drone on for half an hour on a monologue. But if those questions about launching, just getting
Mhm,
a product, a platform live, and
mhm,
we almost on our 8th year anniversary now. So
mhm.
only about
Congratulations.
8 years ago that we got that seed anchor investment from AngelList, Naval on the board, and they really allow us to take this model forward. A model that otherwise would be an AngelList division, but
Mhm,
we were able to take and run with it. So I was very lucky that our co-founder and CTO in year one was and is a very close friend and an exceedingly talented engineer who worked with me at AngelList and who was able to build the platform from scratch within, I think, 2 months, and be able to go live with it. And we
mhm,
launched with the support of some powerhouse advisors, particularly Shahrose Sharanya, who was the founder of Women 2.0, and
mhm,
Shiza Shahid, the co-founder and CEO of the Malala Fund, and the founding advisors, and it happens to be Women's History Month as well. I think that having such a incredible support on day one not only enable us to go to market with a clear market position, but also define the fabric of our culture and mission, who we are as a firm, are focusing on accessibility and inclusivity. So
mhm,
that's the story of how we got to launch.
mhm,
I'm not a technical CEO or founder, but if you're not a technical CEO or founder, you better pair yourself with a really, really strong
mhm,
technical founding CTO, which I was very fortunate to have. The second question is a much, much harder and complex question to answer, which is how do we attract and continue to attract quality deals? Market positioning at the get go and credibility helps. But building a two-sided marketplace is an incredibly difficult business model to begin with. And then to build it in an industry that is entirely new is almost next to impossible from the perspective of venture firms looking for investment opportunities. I'll give you an
mhm,
example. Maybe some of the listener are thinking that fintech, how is that a new industry? If you ask 100 random people in Times Square or in Union Square in San Francisco, I would
mhm,
be shocked if there are more than five individuals who can give you a definition of a safe, a convertible note, what is preferred equity versus common equity. Heck, most people would not be able to tell you what LLC stands for, what
Mhm.
is a corporation versus a flow through entity. So the general retail public, almost no one is an investor and almost no one knows what investing means, which means you gotta educate, you gotta onboard, you gotta
Mhm.
prep that side, the demand side of this two-sided marketplace.
Mhm.
And then you have to convince the supply side, that is the issuers, the companies, that hey, you got to come on board and you got to engage your and going to be able to receive capital financing from the retail public. I think for that reason, it is so hard of a business model that
Mhm.
I am pretty sure when it comes to venture backed, not just like assigning yourself a valuation, but having the validity, the validation of external venture firms backing. Republic is one of very few, if not the only one that's truly venture capitalized because of that reason. But I think having credible advisors, partners, institutional co-founder like AngelList
Mhm.
definitely help us
Mhm.
onboarding some of the first few credible issuers back in
Mhm.
2016 and 2017.
Mhm.
But as we continue to grow, I think we're barely a minute into this new day of
Mhm.
you call it the era of accessible investing. I think we barely passed midnight into this new day.
Mhm.
Much of the journey and the responsibility to present investment opportunities that meet the investor expectation down the road. That's probably the singular focus for me and for the senior team at Republic.
Mm. I totally agree with you. I feel like, the general public you have to educate two sides, right? Like there is the general public side, and then there is also you have to continuously build track record, build like strategic alliance with accredited like investors. So basically more sophisticated people. And I wonder when I'm looking at Republic's most deals on Republic, I feel like they're more towards like the consumer side instead of the enterprise side. And I wonder, like, as for when you were first starting, um, I guess, like, how do you think about, like, what would be the most, like, big, like, where would the biggest profit come from when you're designing a business? And I'm not talking about, like, I don't we don't have to go into details. I know, like, it's a business after all. So I wonder, like, when you were thinking about positioning your product, like, so we have the Airbnb of the world, so, like, which is like just taking X percentage of every transaction. It's like a volume game. But for Republic, I feel like when if I were designing the business from the scratch, right? So like I would think about, where are our 80% profit margin gonna come from? And I feel like to do what you did, it's extremely hard as like there is many deals, many different product. And I wonder, like, when you're designing the product, how do you go about which product to launch first? And then to now, like, recently you launched a new partnership, and then you are by just like stalking your Instagram, I feel like you travel a lot, and then there's a lot of presentations or like representations in every country of Republic, or like of basically I think you're meeting people outside the US as well. So I wonder, like, what's your thought on, like, number one, what product to create, and number two, like, where to distribute this product?
Grace, maybe I should define what we are aiming to build, or that we
Mhm.
aimed to build 8 years ago. Because
Mhm.
depending on what it is that you're aiming to build, a North Star, all of the question and assessment on profit margin, even on product market fit to
Mhm.
begin with,
Mhm.
depends on that, right?
Mhm.
And if you're entering a new market, a new industry, if you have to not just build a business, but you believing that this whole new market segment is going to materialize, but it's not here yet, and
Mhm.
therefore you building and driving that industry, you also have to question if there is truly product market fit.
Mhm.
Here's an example: MySpace aiming to build a place where people would post profile and interact.
Mhm.
They were probably a year or two early, and so they had some product market fit. But obviously, Facebook then and now Meta, ate took their lunch, right?
Mhm.
So for us, the question here is that, are we just right in terms of timing? Are we too early when it comes to the future, whereby the retail public
Mhm.
will want to invest and own the world around them? And so
Mhm.
when we started out at Republic, we wanted to build the infrastructure that can
Mhm.
accommodate it. We have to add on business divisions on top of it, and we started out with venture back companies,
Mhm.
because that's where that we came from, AngelList
Mhm.
and Silicon Valley. But there's no question that the intention from the get-go is, how do you build a marketplace just like Amazon, so that
Mhm.
someone who comes on can invest in tech as well as invest in restaurant, invest in real estate in multiple jurisdiction. The goal has always been to be the go-to marketplace for investing. The
Mhm.
question is which vertical and which product and which asset class. It really depends on, do we have that internal expertise? Do we have
Mhm.
partners that we can support and onboard? And that will always be the dance, the calibration on what else to add, what else to deepen. But I do think that as an entire industry, despite us having a portfolio of over 2,000 companies across our ecosystem, deploy over 3 billion USDs into a wide variety of companies, I think we are barely scratching the surface of what will be a vast addressable market. And so there's still a lot of questions, and toying with refining what customer expectations are, plural, and
Mhm.
how are we doing a better job tomorrow than we are today in delivering on those expectations. Meaning, if an investor comes to Republic
Mhm.
and really is thinking that I'm going to invest in three companies, I'm going to achieve on average a 50x return, we do not want their money, because they are doing so on an uninformed basis. On the other hand, if most investors are like, hey, I'm happy with a 10% yield, but I really don't want to ever lose all of my investment, real
Mhm.
estate is probably a really good fractional real estate is a wonderful asset class
Mhm.
to really enable one to have that return profile. That's why we continue to add on new things in hope, in pursuit of meeting the expectations of what is a very broad spectrum of the retail public that are is coming to the Republic platform.
Mm. When you were thinking about like, so I know that like, so Republic have like primary market, secondary market, and let's talk about like secondary market. So let's say like traditionally people would um sell like secondary market on like maybe like Forge Global, or like I guess like that's like a bigger version of the sale than like um one individual sell some, I don't know, particular company stock somewhere. So I wonder like when you're creating that company, like, so I guess like what does a traditional sell of like a secondary company look like, and what are some like legal challenges people have to go through to um creating a SPV or something to buy or sell secondary,
Yeah.
and how does
Agree.
Republic's product play?
Let me just define the state of the private markets currently in the US and beyond. It
Mhm.
requires huge money amount of money to play, like on Forge and Equities and Angel is tens of thousands of dollars to get in,
Mhm.
virtually zero liquidity. Some are, having a
Mhm.
play at it like force, but it's really for institutional investor to buy and trade in big
Mhm.
amount. But by and large, there's no liquidity. Carter
Mhm.
aimed to do it and now exited out of the market. Um,
Mhm.
we aim to build a truly robust secondary marketplace for the retail public to buy, trade, and sell at $100, $50 at a time.
Mhm.
In the US, we just now barely have the license through one of our partners, but in the UK, Republic runs the most active true retail secondary marketplace in the world with 300 plus companies listing their equity. The future of retail investing hinges on secondary liquidity. And we are building that as we speak, but none of
Mhm.
the firms you had just mentioned even aims to touch the retail public. These are all the word of like institutional venture capital family offices, not the true retail public and enabling secondary liquidity for them. I can speak very confidently that we are one of very less than one handful of firms around the world that have meaningfully made significant headway in
Mhm.
enabling that. But that's definitely the future of investing, liquid cross border.
What does the process look like to onboard a secondary company onto your platform? And, like, I feel like most people are probably looking at the SpaceX because I saw that on your website as well. So, like, the SpaceX, the like, Stripe or like OpenAI or some really a few really big promising companies to buy or sell. And I wonder how, like, I guess, like, how do you guys like pick which one goes onto the platform, or like how do you have the maybe like major amount of really like big logo onto the platform, or like if that's even the retail investor wants or need? And also, how does the liquidity work? Because is that like just selling it to the next person, or like how does it work in this market?
Grace, I can't emphasize enough that today, not on Republic, not anywhere, is there such a thing as retail secondary product for deals like SpaceX, OpenAI, and the likes. These are things we're building towards, but currently we haven't yet enabled the retail public to buy secondary shares of major company like SpaceX or Neuralink or OpenAI.
Mhm, mhm,
In the UK, Republic Europe, we have enabled that for years now. Like
mhm,
Revolut shares, you can find that trading on if you go to Cedars, soon to be
mhm,
branded as Republic Europe. If you go to
mhm,
Cedars Marketplace, you're going to be able to buy Revolut shares, and it's an active market. So true to style, which is the it depends on supply and demand, and you're going to see price volatility. But in here in the US, we are working through that business and legal construct as we speak. We're quite confident that by in 2024, you're going to
mhm,
see us enabling retail investor to buy and trade in some of these companies, but not yet. And
mhm.
therefore the consideration, the nuances, I may have to dive in deeper in a future call once we're about ready to roll that out.
Mm. I wonder when you are, so I guess like why is the US doesn't allow people to trade
Not
secondary?
that, it's not that the US doesn't allow people to trade. I said that it doesn't exist yet because
Mhm,
the rules and the laws that allow for that are relatively nascent and
mhm,
complex. And so for startups or even financial institution to one, grasp the new rules and regulations,
mhm,
and then deal with regulators like the SEC and FINRA to get their permission and understanding and undergo examination and audit. That's a really expensive, time consuming,
Mhm.
and distracting process. That's why you haven't seen any platform going to market
Mhm.
with that. And as I mentioned, Carter tried to work on it for some time, but have been very public about backing out of that business model in recent months. And we, of course, regulatory navigation and staying compliant are probably two things that we are known for among the venture investor circle. So we hope that Republic will be, if not the very first, certainly the most credible in presenting this product to the retail public here in the United States, hopefully this year.
Mm. So like I want to talk about your recent partnership with Stake. So basically it's you guys play in like the prime real estate, and can you talk about that? And I also wanted to learn more about, like, let's say like if people if you invest in stock, like they can just sell, right? But like for like investing in real estate or like private company, what does the exit look like for the audience who doesn't know?
Yeah, real estate is the oldest asset class and probably the most relatable. In fact, the American dream, right? I mean, we both immigrants and
Mhm.
call the U.S. Proudly our home. Everyone knows that the investment, the American dream is to own a home. Now, these days, particularly if you live in California or New York, but also places like Austin and Miami and beyond, that dream is out of reach for the vast majority of both, millennials, Gen Z, and beyond. So the ability to own a fractional interest in a real estate property has
Mhm.
an emotional resonance and a relatability that goes well beyond things like tech investing. Tech in Silicon Valley, they're cool. It's like the headline news. But truly relatable for my parents, they would never put money into something that they run the risk of losing them all. They would put money into things that, you have modest return, but you don't lose it either. So
Mhm.
because of that, we identified real estate as a very important asset class and financial products we want on Republic. And we have facilitate millions of investments into US real estate, residential real estate,
Mhm.
and prop tech. Now, as we have gotten to know that I have gotten to spend a lot of time in the Middle East, it became very clear the future, the potential, even
Mhm.
the present robustness, but the growth trajectory of the region. And we got to know the stake team very well. They focus predominantly on Dubai, UAE real estate residential units. And we thought that wouldn't it be compelling if we find partners that we think are very credible, that we introduce them to our Republic user base in hope that maybe someone may not have any plan to visit Dubai over the next 5 years, but maybe she's able to view a home. And you know what? And find it so compelling that she parks away with $100 and learn about that, not only the sector, but the society, the ecosystem, and a little bit about the culture as well. So the partnership with Stake is really a step forward
Mhm.
in fulfilling Republic's number one mandate. How do you relate and engage and present high quality products to our growing user base, which comprises the general public in more and more countries around the world? But it's all about choices, accessibility, and credibility. And we really are looking forward to the feedback of our users on Stake and on this asset class.
Mhm. How does the partnership work? I know that it seems like you guys just drive traffic to Stake, and how, like, is there some sort of like, I guess, like, yeah, just curious. Like, you don't have to share the details. Of course, it's like a business, but yeah, just overall, how does partnerships works with other platforms?
Whenever you see uh, Republic partnering with another firm or platform,
Mhm.
it's always go well beyond, just some basic share economics or promotion or advertisement. Is meant to have a more integrated, more involved, synergistic existence, so
Mhm.
that we can uh, drive and based on each of the platform's strengths and expertise. In this case, the expertise in the real estate market in Dubai, uh, as part of a long-term framework in building the go-to marketplace for
Mhm.
our community. It's a long-winded way of saying that it's probably too early, and I'm not privy to disclose the specific terms of the
Mhm.
partnerships, but we aim to work closely with the stake team and build with them for years to come. And it
Mm.
should go well beyond just Dubai and the UAE. But again, feedback from our community, based on that, we're gonna grow the relationship and the partnership correspondingly. And I'm certain that that's how the stake leadership team is looking at it as well.
Mm. When you were so like when you were thinking about like acquiring other companies or like doing partnerships, when you were thinking about like the how does the partnership how does like the for example acquisition work or a partnership work at the beginning? Like you mentioned about the real estate part, I totally understand. Like so basically you identify a particular sector and you kind of like think of assuming you just for example you're trying to do something related to real estate and then you look into who are the top like real estate investing players out there and then negotiate a partnership, or let's say you meet the founder of these companies at somewhere and then you feel like there's some sort of synergy there. Like do you go with the people first or do you go with a sector that you identified that's a need first?
Um, of course, we have to identify the priorities as a business in terms of new market to expand into, new sectors to add on to the
Mhm.
platform. So that intention got to be there. We're
Yeah.
flexible as a startup, but of course you have to have the intention to grow and
Mhm.
expand. And if we aim to be a global multi-asset marketplace, it means
Mhm.
we're always on the lookout on where to
Mhm.
expand, where to grow both geographically and with
Mhm.
respect to industries. Now, like everything else in life, all relationships, friendships, partnership, business, and
Mhm.
otherwise, there's intention and then there's happenstance and luck. And so once you have that
Mhm.
intention, if you're lucky enough to meet a partner that you trust, really, really value, think that they bring just a really synergistic suite of strength and skills and product. And if they are willing to work more closely, maybe under one roof, that's an
Mhm.
acquisition. If they're like, hey, we just want to work in a share in lockstep approach, but we're
Mhm.
not ready to be, a business division, then that's a maybe a JV partnership, maybe it's a share economic partnership. If you happen to meet a team that is so nascent, but very very early on in their journey, it may very well be that they would be the founding team for this new market, and they would build it under the Republic brand.
Mhm.
So it really varies, but it boils down to finding, in whatever form, value add, high integrity
Mhm.
teams with products that we find compelling and that we believe that they are, you know, sought after or of interest to our user base.
Mm. I wonder what is so I saw that you guys have, you know, the investor side and then the business side. So on the business side, there's like growth capital solution, Web3 services, and institutional services. Can you elaborate on that? Like, or is this like the because for under the investor, there is different investment products. That's what we are familiar with, what Republic is kind of like famous for. Like, you know, you can just invest in startups with $100 or something, or
Yeah.
$10. So, like for the business side, like how does that work?
Agrees. Allow me to define what Republic is, and then I will dive in on your question.
Mhm.
Because we do a lot of things, and so that's why sometimes we can be misunderstood, but we are an investment infrastructure firm and an investment platform or a
Mhm.
conglomerate of investment platforms. Straight up, Web3 leaning digital financial infrastructure firm and investment platforms. That means we have a wide variety of financial products and different ways of working with business partners. The easiest comparable to us, of course, is a platform like Amazon. Someone can go there and buy a $5, tube of toothpaste. And
Mhm.
if you're more of means, then you can go on and buy a $2,000 TV.
Mhm.
Or that if you're a streaming a content a producer, you probably want to engage with Amazon Prime and maybe get your content over to distribution there. If you
Mhm.
happen to be a manufacturer of wine or honey, you may want to engage with the Whole Foods side of Amazon and get onboarded and get distribution in exactly the same way. We
Mhm.
have retail investor coming on to invest $20 into fractional real estate in the US. We
Mhm.
may have a real estate hotel chain that's looking on how to digitize and make their distribution and product available to the general public. You can
Mhm.
have the Revolut of the world saying that, hey, we're already a unicorn and we just want to give away equity to our users, to our fans. Can we leverage your platform? You have the Gumroad of the world, which is, or like, the next high
Mhm.
power, early stage YC AI company that wants
Mhm.
to raise from their friends and families and supporters. So depending on the business, depending on the vector, it will be fed through a different team at Republic, and that's why we have venture capital, institutional financing, enterprise, retail US, retail Europe, one of these days retail GCC, retail Korea, or an ecosystem powered by a singular N of one digital e-finance infrastructure that currently exists cross-border retail enabled with secondary liquidity. There is no other infrastructure outside of Republic that has the scale and the capability of what we have right now in 2024. That may change in the future, but for now, we truly corner the fintech space in that cross-border infrastructure.
Mm, let's say if I want to, like a Forge Global to buy a secondary, let's say like 100K worth of a really hot company, and then I come to Republic to sell, basically distribute it to, let's say, 3,000 investors among this like little amount of shares. So I wonder, like, does that work, or like, is this like what are the challenges there to like
Yeah,
do this?
Grace, it's very hard for me to see how that can work because Forge and other companies are built on a very dated infrastructure of PDF, the normal KYC, go through the standard cap table. No, if someone just bought $500,000 worth of SpaceX shares, they
Mhm,
can just naturally onboard on Republic because it's like saying that you using snail mail to send a piece of mail from you to a close friend. Can that close friend turn that into a Gmail email? No, right? I mean, it's an entirely different infrastructure. So what we will do is that we will work with companies like the SpaceX of the world, and that would need Elon's permission, and he will grant it because the investor will come to expect it, and then enable and mass people to buy, sell, and trade. And we already have many examples of that in obviously smaller type of companies. But no, I think what is very different about Republic compared to any financial firm out there is that all of the things you hear about GP, LP, Force, for that matter, including the AngelList and Carter or whatnot, are predicated on a very dated 50, 60-year-old infrastructure to facilitate private deals. That's why they're so large in amount and they're so inefficient. What we're building is an entirely new infrastructure that have already been used and facilitate, obviously millions in transactions, and 4 million more in users. But I hope that answered the question. Happy to dive in deeper.
Totally. I would love to dive in deep onto, the infrastructure that you guys are building. How is it different than the 50 years old dated infrastructure of
Yeah.
most
And,
traditional firms?
and then yeah, there may be because I probably would need more than just a few minutes to provide in-depth information, and just mindful of the time that you have for me here. But in broad stroke, one, in order to facilitate it with the retail public, you need a legal rail. You got to get the
Yeah.
right from the right regulator in each country. So that's one, and that's a lot of difficult, lengthy, expensive undertaking with the first cross-Atlantic
Mhm.
platform, because we now have the requisite licenses and more. The second one is the ability, in order to facilitate more people a smaller amount, you got to
Mhm.
be able to do so cheaply, and the
Mhm.
only way to do that is by technology, right?
Mhm.
To give you an example, if you can fractionalize the Mona Lisa down to a billion pieces,
Mhm.
let's say a million pieces, and sell each piece for $100, and then you also automate the KYC AML process, all of a
Mhm.
sudden the Mona Lisa is much more affordable to many more. And right now, the only way to buy the Mona Lisa, and you can't buy it, but if the Louvre decide to sell it, they're gonna sell it to one person, probably worth $500 million, whatever it may be. If you
Mhm.
can automate and make KYC, AML, transfer information, authentication, and if you can fractionalize so that you can settle payment in smaller amount, you can transact in smaller and smaller amounts. That capability to automate and fractionalize are the two among many other unique attributes of the distributed ledger technology. That's why we define ourselves as a blockchain Web3 focused
Mhm.
digital financial infrastructure firm. But that probably merit a much longer conversation on the details and nuances as to how our infrastructure um, is leaps and bounds forward compared to the current infrastructure. It's almost like email versus snail mail.
Mm. Um, I know that we don't have, like, a lot of time, but, like, I wanted to go deeper into a little bit of the infrastructure, well, like, the technology side of things, because,
Yeah.
you mentioned, well, both of technology and legal side of things. So you were a lawyer before you join the tech ecosystem. And I wonder, like, from the legal perspective, what were things that you have to push things forward? And then you mentioned about these, like, automating KYC or authentication and everything. What goes into doing a deal like this? Because, like, as a user, like, let's say I go on Robinhood, I probably click yes, yes, and then, like, I'm buying Apple stock. So I wonder, like, how does it work to get to where Republic is today?
Yes, Robinhood provides a more friendly user interface for millennials and Gen Z, but there's nothing new or innovative about that business model. Obviously, buying public equity on Schwab, on Fidelity, has been around for decades. This
Yeah.
doesn't require any new regulatory evolution. But to your point, yes, I'm a securities lawyer by trade, by training, and I'm still licensed an attorney. But
Mhm.
a lot of work, and this is sheer luck, after the Great Recession, 2008 to 2012 or so, a ton of people in the industry, including Naval and AngelList and a few more, really nudged the White House and Congress to change that body of law. But that initial piece of law is like the first product that you need to improve, iterate, tweak, and that when it comes to a legal product involves ongoing information exchange with regulators, trying to convince the SEC to amend a certain policies, trying to get Congress to see through a new rules, a new piece of law. It's just painstaking work. So unless you really, really believe in it and go for the long haul, the much easier path, which is the vast majority of everyone else, is to, well, have a broker dealer, use, facilitate deal, make money, and call it a day. We're here to really reinvent and push legal changes so that retail investing
Mhm.
with secondary liquidity is more and more feasible and real. And that's why I meant that we barely a minute into this new day, because only now that firms like INX, which is
Mhm.
one of our partners, and we have a stake in INX, has that license to
Mhm.
allow trading, and that's a relatively new license, right? So the regulatory patience, the wherewithal to move the needle forward and drag along rules and policies so that they evolve with society and technology, is a critical component of anyone who's aiming to build something new, much less something that's gonna be that's gonna last several lifetime. Then you gotta that dance, that regulatory public-private relationship is a must, and that's something that we invested in from day one.
Mm. What are like, how do you, I guess, like, number one is like, how do you get the conviction to do this thing? Because I feel like you have to see some sort of silver lining on things that this could change or could not change. Because I feel like most people, like, I think, like, because of, since Republic's a venture backed business, like, I'm sure investor have asked you, like, okay, since nobody have done this before, why could you do this? And like, of course, you have the right background to do it, but like also like I feel like there's just so much challenges that sometimes like things are never done. So I wonder, number one is like, how do you answer the question like if this thing could be done? And then number two is, realistically speaking, let's say if I don't know if Republic's like if Republic is gonna become a public company soon, like let's say if Republic is gonna become a public company, what are things that you would think of as a CEO to get the company there?
Well, two very different questions. Not related, but let me take the first one first. It gets easier with time to build a whole new industry. That's why I keep emphasizing that our business is difficult, but fun, and full of potential, because it's not like, if you're going to launch a new restaurant, you're not really opening up a new industry. You're just trying to capture market share.
Mm,
Same thing with, taxi, flight, entertainment, whatever else it may be. In this case, you're trying to build a whole new industry, and so it gets easier with time, because now more and more validations, and we'll be able to successfully deliver on things that we said we would
mhm,
years ago, and that makes easier for people to buy in on. But 100%, I mean, 2016, 2017, there is a reason that outside of Republic, I don't think, I mean, I don't know that there's ever been another investment platform for the retail public, true retail, that is backed by private equities or venture capital firms beyond like the seed stage, like not
mhm,
counting like YC or whatever, for the, yeah, like for established VC to back in, more than $10 million in a true investment platform for the retail public. I think we may be the only one, because most firms still think that this is too difficult, like too, out there, incredulous, to see through. But now that we're entering year eight, I think that narrative has shifted. I'm
mhm,
feeling pretty good that even the Goldman Sachs, the BlackRock, Blackstone of the world, are seeing that this is, if not yet a mature industry, one that will be will come to exist and to grow in their
mhm,
lifetime, in the next decade or two. So that's for the first question of yours. The second one about going public. Our goal is to see through the notion of ownership and having a stake in things you care about. It may be owning a home, It may be a new technology like AI. It may be a coffee shop on revenue sharing basis. It can be the next movie franchise, Crazy Rich Asian 2. Maybe, Asian fans around the world want to invest a little bit. So on that quest, it means that I think whatever it takes for us to get there, to be accessible and compliantly operating in more and more countries, it may mean that we need to capitalize ourselves by going public. It may mean that a subsidiary of Republic is going public. It may mean that in the US we're publicly listed, but in Europe we continue to be private. All of these are possibilities, but I'm not leading the company with a I need to take this company public and make myself wealthy and be able to say that I'm, a public company CEO. That's not at all, not at all, not even on my list of 10,000 priorities and interests. That's not one. So I look at going public or private simply in terms of is that the optimal way to give us the capital that we need to do a major acquisition or to do a major market expansion, strictly that. But of course, with if and when Republic needs to prepare to be a public company here in the U.S., that the pain and the hassle of being a CEO of such a company is certainly a deterrence impact. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to provide stakeholder in Republic, people on our cap table with secondary liquidity through our own secondary platform rather than the need of taking us going public just to give them an exit. So the hope here is that instead of going public, you just use Republic, and the Republic itself is going to use our own infrastructure to give that liquidity.
Mm. I wanna like end with one more real question because I want to be mindful of the time. Like so if like so right now this is not a podcast in 2024 if we don't talk about AI. How do you think AI would play out into either improving Republic as a platform or Republic getting into more AI deals? Like how do you see AI plays out in your platform?
Well, not just on my platform, right? Even this time last year, already quite clear with our team that internally, every team, every division got to be able to drive at the very least 30% plus efficiency by leveraging AI. And that means either you do 30% more or you cut your cost by 30% just by leveraging AI tools and beyond. So from the operational efficiency, again, that's baseline. I think some business division, we've been able to drive 80% efficiency by using simple tools like ChatGPT. I mean, or ChatGPT enabled customized softwares. Um, as a sector, clearly that's about the frothiest tech subsector vertical for venture. And I'm not a deep tech. I would never claim myself to be a deep tech expert, much less an AI expert. But we do have a wide network of venture partners who help introduce companies deals to us, and we continue to aim when there's a compelling opportunity to make it available to our Republic investor base, may it be that institutional family offices or the retail public, depending on what the company is willing to take on the cap table.
Mm. I think this is like such a interesting way to like think about it. I totally agree with you. I feel like AI could bring into at least 30% of efficiency into each department. But and then this is such a amazing way to like a kind of like execute into on company basis. On that note, where can we find you on the social media, Ken?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn somewhat infrequently, and I apologize if anyone has been messaging me on LinkedIn. I'm just been a little bit overwhelmed with all the different social channels. But on Instagram, I'm just at Kendrick Stein, KENDRICK STEIN. Is a
What does that
cheeky
mean? Yeah. Is that Frankie's
So,
friend?
which is a nickname that some of my friends, gave me as a long inside story. But I've always worked for Maurice Canbar.
Mhm,
Uh, I think in the prior life, but uh, I love the story and the heritage of different immigrants group, but
mhm.
particularly Jewish American, and happen to have a lot of friends. And so I think it's a honorific, ad that some of my closest friends gave me, and when I set up Instagram back when, I just happened to use that handle. But on Twitter, is yeah, I'm on Twitter as well, and somewhat, somewhat active on WhatsApp and Telegram. But if you send me a message, eventually I'll get back. I promise. It may not be the same day, but I try to.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ken, for coming to the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, Grace. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and thanks everyone else for tuning in. We'll talk soon.
Okay, let me quickly